Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Making Every Employee Your Best Employee, Bridging the Experience and Skills Gap with AI. This webinar is brought to you by Express Computer, powered by IBM. I'm Sudipta Dev, Senior Associate Editor with Express Computer. Are you aware that the average knowledge worker spends 20% to 30% of their day looking for information? In the current scenario, business leaders face an unprecedented pace of change. The key to handling rapidly shifting business conditions is a knowledgeable, empowered workforce. With remote working being the norm, employees are facing huge challenges in finding relevant information. Fortunately, technology has an answer. So IBM has recently introduced Expert Assist to reduce the time it takes to find answers and insights from thousands of text-based documents and eliminate the repetitive search tasks we spend hours doing every day. Expert Assist combines the power of Watson Assistant and Watson Discovery, IBM's award-winning AI search technology that uses machine learning to unlock hidden insights in structured text documents. To give you more information on the subject are our expert speakers for the day, Pradeep Iyer, Segment Leader, Watson AI, IBM India, South Asia, and Kiran Chalapalli, Chief Technical Architect, IBM India, South Asia. Before I hand over to them, I'd like to go over the webinar information. This is an audio and video webinar being broadcasted live and will be available as on demand. We will have polls in between the webinar. I request you all to participate in the same. We will have a round of Q&A at the end of the webinar. However, you can send in your questions anytime during the webinar using the Q&A text box. If you face any technical issues, please try to refresh your browser or else reach out to our team using the same questions text box. If you have any further questions, or your questions are unanswered, we will connect with you over email to answer the same. And there is a survey form which will come up in your browser in the end once the webinar ends. We sincerely appreciate your feedback. And that's all from my side now. Without taking more of your time, I invite Pradeep to take the session forward. Over to you, Pradeep.
Hey, thanks, Sudipta. A very warm good afternoon to all of you. And it's a delight for us to be with you this afternoon. And you all know that, we as a company have been there for more than 100+ years. And this recent times have been an experience for most of us. And we all are learning from the kind of a situation that we all collectively are dealing as we go through the challenging times of today. And interestingly, Kiran brings in 2 decades of experience of having worked with IBM, and we had some very interesting conversations in the last 18 to 24 months with clients from several industries. And I'm sure what Kiran was speaking for the last 5 years has completely changed in the last 18 to 24 months. And a lot to learn from the challenges, the times are bringing us with. And that's something, which Kiran is going to share in the next few minutes as to how we've been, interacting with some of the challenges that clients are sharing with us, and how IBM Watson has been able to bring that comfort to everyone to do much better and perform at all levels. With that, I will request Kiran to probably come over and share the delight of how he's been seeing Watson to make a difference to several of these organizations.
Thank you very much, Pradeep. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sparing your time to come and listen to us today. So I hope it will be very useful. I'm looking forward to an interactive session. We are happy to answer questions. So let me get started. So the agenda, as you know, is to see how AI can help every employee in your organization be the best, right? Be without the restrictions of skills or knowledge or experience. So So let's dive into it. So first of all, I'd like to clarify that, one aspect of it. I'm going to use this a lot. So knowledge worker, right? So now who is the knowledge worker? Basically, what we are saying is that a person whose job involves handling or using information. And if you think about it, uh, every employee is a knowledge worker, right? Employees need to be empowered. They need to have the information. They need to be able to solve problems. And for that, they need to have information at beck and call and contextual information, right? Not just some Google search. They wanted information that is specific to what they're asking, specific to a client that they are talking to, etc. Right? So, okay, let's jump into that. So what are some of as I said, every employee is a knowledge worker. And, what are some of the wants and who are these different employees, right? So if you look at a merchandiser, he wants to increase sales, right? And optimize product distribution. A bank or a insurance relationship manager wants to quickly understand how best and what to upsell, cross-sell to a customer, right? In a depot, maybe a security manager wants to know that if a truck comes in without an invoice, what is the process? What is the SOP? How can I quickly find that out? A contact center agent wants to be able to find the information, appropriate contextual information to help best answer a question on the phone. Or even an engineer who wants to quickly diagnose and restart a server without loss of data, time, and money, and looking at so much amount of data, how do they put it all in context and then be able to fix the problem in time, right? So these are some of the tips, and there are many, many more. And most of them, as you can see here, involve ability to find information. So this is the part that I'll be focusing. So the traditional information retrieval, it's difficult, right? If you have a search in your internal or external portal or a website or an app, it is usually keyword based. It is difficult to find contextual answers, and especially if the questions are complex. So this becomes very difficult and time consuming for the employees, and you can't always keep training, and not just new employees, but even the regular existing employees. When things change, how do they get themselves to enable to this new information or change of a rule or a policy or a product, etc. So I'll just pause here to now we're going to put one poll question for you. We'd love for you to participate in this.
Okay, so I'll read out the poll questions for the audience. How many hours on an average does an employee in your organization spend to search relevant information regarding his work? We have 3 options: 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, and more than 3 hours. So I request the audience to please select one of the options. We have about maybe 30 seconds left. I'll read out the question again. How many hours on an average does an employee in your organization spend to search for relevant information regarding his work? This is the result.
Yeah, so majority of you have said it's anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, which is pretty close to what a study has found. Basically, it is around 2.5 hours a day, right? So it's, as you can imagine, that's like more than 35% of your time. So do you really want them to be able to, instead of doing some productive work, go around trying to find information, maybe searching themselves in some system, or going around asking somebody maybe who's more experienced to get that information? So it's costly, it's loss of time. So effectively, that will affect your CSAT, it could affect your productivity, etc. Right? So in IT operations, actually, they have done even more. IBM did even more research, and it could see that there's tremendous amount of cost per week, depending upon the number of outages and issues and time taken to resolve those issues. So that is just a general view, right? But if you look at it, our world has been, the last 2 years especially, the world has been changing, 1.5 years has been changing tremendously, right? There's a lot of different changes, political, weather, the whole pandemic, right? There's a lot of things that are changing, that is affecting us to be prepared. We need to be better prepared for this new or different normal, right? You have remote workforce. How do you empower them to be able to do their job as effectively or even better? You need to be able to engage customers virtually, right? I was talking to one bank and they were telling me, Kiran, we need to be able to process trades, but we need to be able to do it remotely. We can't, clients don't really want to come to a branch to submit the documents, right? You need to be able to enable remote access to everything, right? All the information, but with all the security in place. And of course, accelerate the agility and efficiency of your employees for them to be able to better render their duties, right? And there's a whole lot more that comes in picture. And net, again, the employees, your knowledge worker, need to find the information easily and quickly, and be able to articulate it back, use it in their job, in their work fast, right? So that's the key thing. So now let's look at a list of some of these knowledge workers, right? Who are these knowledge workers? It could be anybody. I told you, we already talked about a bank relationship manager, insurance agent trying to find some answer to a specific question that somebody asked. Maybe it's a life insurance agent, and Kiran is filling out the form, and then he has a question. Hey, insurance agent, I used to smoke a couple of years ago. The form asked me, are you a smoker? Should I check yes or no? It's a critical question, right? If you check no, and later on, maybe you should have answered yes, the value of the whole insurance is useless, because after you pass away, your family might not get the insurance benefit, right? On the other hand, if you check yes, then the premium goes up. So it's a critical information for you to be able to find that quickly, and so that it should not be postponed where the agent says, I'll get back to you, because then and there the application has stalled. So like that, right? It could be a store administrator trying to find out, okay, the current inventory, the current sales, the expected sales, and so on and so forth. That will help them to make quick decisions. And this could be anybody, right? Automotive engineers, teachers, contact center agents. We already talked about them, and we also talked about the operations engineer, right? So with what we want to bring in is that Watson, our IBM's AI platform, you can find information quickly. You can find information that is contextual. You can even accelerate research. You can, even anticipate and predict any kind of issues. It could even be when Kiran calls into a call center, maybe you can even detect, okay, what are some of the issues that he's going, and accordingly predict, here is why he's calling, and then route it to the appropriate person without needing him to navigate through the IVR system, right? How about that? That is an amazing CSAT, right? So, okay, I'll pause here for our second question now. Let's jump in.
So the second poll question is, it's an interesting question. In fact, if you're using a virtual agent for assisting your customers, please rate the efficiency of the virtual agent on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best. Very interesting. I myself would like to know the answer.
You already have a virtual agent. If you're already using a chatbot, how good is it in terms of its efficiency? Yeah. Sorry, Sudipta, go ahead.
So audience, please select one of the options. We still have a few seconds left. Okay, here you go, Kiran. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, that's good to know. So most of you think it is about reasonable. You are in the, the 3 range. Most of you are on 40%, and some of you are above average, right? You are decently happy with how it is doing. Thank you. That helps. Let me talk about IBM's solution in this space. So we don't provide chatbots, right? Chatbots are typically like things that answer some frequently asked questions. Of course, we do all of that. Things maybe that will take an order, maybe execute point, give you some link, and so on, right? So it's pretty rudimentary in that sense. It doesn't have a lot of the nuances that typically a human being can respond to a question with. That's where we say we are in the business of cognitive agents or virtual assistants, right? These are powered by deep learning. They guide the user through what they want to do or what they're trying to find. It can learn continuously from conversations. It can execute actions against systems. It could be database systems, other applications kicking off an RPA, etc. It can also recognize emotion, sentiment, and adjust its response accordingly. Imagine a situation, somebody comes in and says, hey, I forgot my password, I need it to reset, can you help me? It's a very neutral tone. Yes, he sees unhappy about it, but it's not like he's angry, right? So he wants it to be done and then move on with it. So you give him a response, here is the link to reset your password. But on the other hand, another person comes in and says, this is ridiculous. Every time this happens, I just want to make a payment and I can't find, the password seems to have been reset. I don't know why this happens. Now you can sense that it's the same intent. He wants the password to be reset so that he can log into the system. But now he's angry, he's frustrated, right? So instead of saying, here is the link, go, right? What if the bot understood that context and then responded in a way, I'm so sorry, I can see you're angry, you're frustrated. I can totally understand that. Let me try and help you here. Here is the link to get that resolved. So now that changes the whole context. So rather than just blindly giving a response, it is understanding the emotion of the person. So it becomes a much more effective tool. So our tool for that is called as you know, Watson is a brand, and within that there are a number of offerings. And Watson Assistant is the offering for conversational applications, right? So it could be a customer, it could be an employee, it could be, if you are a government healthcare, a citizen, right? So you could have them asking a question. The question could be asked in different channels, right? It could be a text-based virtual assistant. It could be an email assistant. It could be a voice assistant, right? So it doesn't matter. The same bot can handle multiple channels without you having to change the underlying training or the intents or the dialogues of that. And not only that, apart from it can maintain the context, it can learn continuously. It can also find information on which it has not been trained for. And I'll even have a slide that I'll talk about how that works and with an example there. But there we are using something called as Watson Discovery. So if there's a question that you have that the bot has not been trained to answer, it will redirect it to Discovery. And then that searches information within maybe some set of information, documents or web pages that you have allowed it to find. It's not like a Google search where it could find anything, right? And you can't even know if you can trust it. It is truly validated data that is the right information that needs to be provided to your customers or your employees, right? And then the third part is it can seamlessly hand over to a human agent. And there are certain situations which could be depending upon maybe the user wanting to ask, saying that, hey, I want to talk to a human being. or it could be certain business situations where somebody says, I want to close my account. You really don't want your bot to say, okay, here is the process, go ahead, close your account, right? You would rather want to give it to somebody, a human being, who can maybe try to persuade the person, to the customer, to stay on, right? So that ability to hand over is including sending the full context of the conversation till the point the user asked for, the customer asked for, to talk to an agent. So that makes it easier for the agent, also so much refreshing for the customer, because they don't want to go to an agent and then the agent says, okay, I don't know what you're here for, tell me everything again, right? So you would rather want them to know already what you have already explained, so that they can start from that point. So I'm going to show you a video of a demo that we created with what is called as a virtual avatar, right? So you must have seen voice bots on telephone, but here the idea here is that we can support that as well. But here the idea is you go, maybe you want it on at a bank, maybe at a kiosk, maybe at an airport, maybe even on the browser. Maybe somebody make it more emotional, right? Where they are able to talk to it, see how it is responding. Maybe it becomes a lot more effective, right? So this is one option that we do provide. So let me.
Welcome to Open Bank. How can I help you today?
I want to do a funds transfer. Can you help me with that?
Sure, I can help you with that. Can you name the beneficiary to whom you want to transfer the funds?
Ramesh Nair.
I am sorry, that name is not listed under your beneficiaries. You can try again, or I can list all your beneficiaries for you here.
I think it's Rajesh Nair. Can you check that?
Rajesh is listed under your beneficiaries. What is the amount you wish to transfer?
I want to transfer 40,000 rupees.
Can you select the account from which you want to make the transfer? One, savings account with number ending 5674. 2, credit card account ending 8767.
I'll go with option number 1, the savings account.
Please.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, so you get the point. So I think
Has been initiated. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, thank you.
yeah. So,
Thank you for reaching out to us.
So you can
Have a good day.
You can see that the bot was able to understand the Indian accent, was able to integrate with the backend system, get the right information. She mentioned Rajesh and then she changed it to somebody else, Ramesh. So that kind of validation ability is there in it, as well as that avatar look and feel, where this is the robotics was supposed to be, something that would take over, we thought, but that didn't really happen, right? One of the things that I noticed. So as what I noticed here is that this might be something that is becoming, pretty useful, because you are not just providing a mindless bot that is just, on the browser. Now you are able to see somebody, it gives you a lot more connection than when you don't have a face in front of you. So this seems to be very popular these days. So, okay, so wanted to quickly give you a view of the architecture. So here this whole part is the Watson assistant part. So it has the ability to smartly route decisions. It has ability to orchestrate callouts to any third-party systems. It could be pre-message or post-message. So you have that ability that comes out of the box. You can even fetch logs. I already mentioned about the channels. You can integrate with any channel. It could be voice, it could be text, it could also be email, and the channels could also be social media, Slack, WhatsApp, etc. So you can, there is no restriction. So pretty much virtually any kind of channel can be integrated with this. And you can integrate with all kinds of systems in the back. This could be your content management system, or documents, or web pages, etc., that can be crawled and information can be provided as an FAQ response. It could be, third-party applications for various things. Maybe you are an airline and you want to be able to do some currency exchange because somebody wants to pay with a different currency than what is local here. It could be also integrated with your existing contact center tooling. Maybe you have an Aviva system or a Cisco system that is a telephony system and you want to integrate, it can do that as well. It can also do handoff, which we already talked about. Some of the features I would like to highlight why I talked about it at the very beginning, where I said this is not a chatbot, this is actually a virtual assistant, a cognitive agent. So some of the things that differentiates, and there's a whole lot more, are things like intent recommendation. So what is this? So when you're building a bot, it takes you, the majority, about 30 to 40% of the time goes into putting the questions together, creating the intents, the training set, right? But if you have that in some chat logs, maybe an existing live or email logs, you could, or even social media logs, you could use that to just import it into Watson and automatically learns and clusters all of them and then starts building intents. And you could, of course, moderate that and say, maybe split it into multiple sub intents and so on. That level of ability is also there. And then it also has, once you build the bot, one of the biggest problems with bots are that human error creeps in, right? Somebody builds it, someone else comes in, starts, making changes, additions, improvements, and that could sometimes have issues, and actually most of the times have issues where, the earlier training was with one thought process, and the new training is a different process. And so the same question that was answered maybe correctly earlier might not be answered because some of the new examples were put in the wrong intent bucket than what it should have been. There could even be conflicts, right? So that's where intent conflict resolution helps in during the operations by clearly saying, hey, I think this question that you have, this is a duplicate of that other question, or this question seems to make more sense to be in that other intent bucket. Do you want me to move it there? And it's just a matter of you saying yes or no, and then it automatically resets it. So even human error, especially when you have like hundreds of intents, it becomes very difficult for you to know where the problem has crept in. So this will help with that. There is also digressions. This is useful, especially when you have like a flow, a long flow, or even a medium flow, where maybe, let's say, I'll take that same example of the life insurance, right? Where I'm filling in the forms, maybe through the bot, and at some point it says, are you a smoker? And then now I have a different question, I don't have an answer to that. I want to say, hey, I used to smoke 2 years ago. Should I check yes or no? Now that has kind of digressed from your original flow of filling the application form. So Watson has that ability to go find that answer, respond to it, and then come back to the original flow and say, now how do you want to answer that, right? So then accordingly, you don't lose that full context. Disambiguation is another great feature. If somebody asks a vague question, sometimes, a lot of the bots, what they do is they just find the best matching intent and provide an answer. If somebody says COVID, right, and then it just says, here is the definition of COVID, maybe they just wanted to ask the symptoms of it. So what Watson does is it says, hey, do you want to know what COVID is? Do you want to know the symptoms of COVID? Do you want to know the current statistics of COVID, etc. Right? So that level of ability it has to disambiguate that question that was a bit vague. This is a variation of a typical chatbot, right, or virtual assistant. Most of you guys, most of the companies might already have a virtual assistant. And so what we are saying here is that we have the ability to integrate with your existing bot. So let me first try and help understand what that is. So here is one question, which is a frequently asked question, right? So it's a very simple, straightforward, typical dialogue kind of question. What are your hours? Okay. If I find the intent hours, this is my response. Store is open from 9 to 5 through Monday through Saturday. Done, right? But if I ask a question for which it has not been trained on, how do I take measurements? Now that's a different thing, maybe hidden in some document somewhere. It has not been trained. It's not a frequently asked question, but still you want to be able to provide an answer. So that part is what is called as the Watson discovery part, where that answer, because it is not there in Watson Assistant's training, it will automatically use discovery, find the relevant piece of information. Here is the answer that it finds, maybe on this web page, and then provides it as a response. Now you might say, oh, do I need to take Watson Assistant and discovery? No, you can use your existing chatbot and integrate it with Watson discovery. So you don't have to break anything. While ideally we would want you to use Watson Assistant, it's the industry leading one, virtual assistant, right? So we want you to be able to do it. But if that is not possible, you can do that using extending it with Watson discovery. Another scenario is in a situation where you have the contact center, you have an agent who is taking some calls, and rather than the agent having to find information as you call, find information, searching it in CRM, searching somewhere else. What if you had a system that was listening to the call, right, and providing appropriate responses and guides and hints to the agent to say, okay, ask for this, say this, here is the statement, right? So accordingly, and even saying, oh, the current sentiment is negative, so maybe you might want to do this, you might want to say that. If it is positive, then it might prompt them to say, hey, this is a good time to do some upsell, cross-sell, right? So, and it gives the general information. This is, of course, all information that is typically there in any contact center application, but you can add this other ability for the bot to listen to and then provide an appropriate response. So this, just to again give you a high level architecture of how an agent assist works. This could be any of your existing telephony systems where they typically call the contact center agent. What we are providing is, this is the usual process. Now we are adding a Watson piece into that. First is, of course, an orchestrator that takes that information, sends it to Watson speech to text, which converts it into text. We then have Watson Assistant, which finds the appropriate answer for that question, which comes in a textual format. Now, actually, I'm breaking it down for you. But in reality, all you have to do when you're developing it, you're only using this because speech is inherently inside Watson Assistant. But just wanted to give you the flow of how it happens. And then it might even look for some discovery. As I told you, maybe some information is there in some external or some other document, and you want that information, it can do that. And then integrate with any backend systems like CRM, ERP, etc. And then provide a response to the agent, kind of, helping them through the process of, okay, now how to answer that question, right? So the agent can now focus completely on what the user is saying, the caller is saying, rather than frantically trying to find information and only half listening to what the caller is saying, right? So that's one of the beauty of this solution. So I'll again pause there for our final poll question. Hopefully, this will be, I think you will find this very interesting.
Okay, so I'll read out the poll question. In your organization, which of these areas are time consuming and have scope for improvement? The 4 options are finding relevant information from various sources. And the second is uploading and scanning documents, manually going through emails and attachments. And the last option is going through meeting recordings, videos, or audio files. We have some time left, so I request you to please select one of the options, and Kiran can give his insights. In your organization, which of these areas are time consuming and have scope for improvement? Okay, this is the answer. Okay. Kiran, your thoughts?
Yeah. So interesting. Okay. So I didn't see anything from the uploading and scanning of documents. Maybe we weren't clear, but I think this is also pretty important. But okay. So it seems like there's a lot of relevance for the finding information from various sources as well as manually going through emails and attachments. Okay, got it. Yeah, that's insightful. Thank you very much. And interestingly, the video one seems to have one where response where that seems to be important as well. So I'll cover all of these. So what in the very beginning we talked about this. We said we have something called as Watson Assistant, expert assist, that helps your expert, your knowledge worker, find information contextually. And that expert could be a store manager, insurance agent, relationship manager. It could be a depot manager. It could be an engineer, right? In this case, you can see here, I have a couple of screenshots of a inventory system and sales system that is that a store manager can possibly see to understand, in this case, Nike apparel and shoes, so how much have been sold and what is their inventory. And that helps them to be able to make appropriate decisions. It could also be complex things like an engineer who's trying to design a pipe for some drilling, right? A drill bit maybe, right? So, and they want to know, okay, what is the right drill bit to use for this particular area, right? Where it has this type of rock with this type of density, etc. And the system can go intelligently find information from the past data where similar information was used, and maybe it'll say, oh, a diameter of this with a with the configuration of that would be the right drill bit to be used. And it can even go find past sales invoices for you to know, okay, here is the approximate cost, maybe with inflation, here is what, so that the person, the engineer, can plan for it and even look at from a budgeting perspective as well. The second aspect of it is document workflow automation. This, very interestingly, the last 1 year or so has been something that a lot of the clients, we have seen a lot of requests here. And what this is like in any loan processing or a insurance application processing or a claims processing, right? What happens is you have a customer submit certain set of documents, KYC or request letters, etc., etc. And that physical document needs to be processed manually, typically, right? But what if you had a system, an end-to-end flow that could convert that into a digital text, both handwritten as well as printed, understand what document is it? Is it an invoice? Is it an LC? Is it a something else? Extract, identify the fields, specific fields that are important for you. And this is a NLP, which is driven by an AI-based NLP engine. Extract out specific entities or fields in there, run it through some rules through AI or through some basic rules. It could be things like even evaluating whether, based on all the conditions that has been, the fields that have been identified, whether they should be recommended a yes or a no. It could be an application, it could be anything, right? So this will kind of, this is the flow that we are seeing where a lot of use cases are coming out, and we are seeing a lot of leverage here. So it does information extraction, it reduces human errors. You don't have to start sitting there, operations folks, doing data entry of hundreds of fields per application. So that obviously the time taken to process it comes down. Minimal manual entry obviously means reduced failure cases. And then a scalable platform, even if you have suddenly double the number of cases, right? With people, if it is manually, you would have to hire more people or get them to work more hours. Instead, you have a system that will automatically scale up and down, right? So that's the kind of thing that we are looking at. And one of the use cases, very prominent one in the banking industry, is the trade finance that fits perfectly well in that scenario, right? You have a customer that traditionally would submit the physical documents in a branch would scan it, send it to the operations team, where a maker would do the data entry and a checker would validate it, and then they would push it to the downstream application. What we have provided is automation to a major part of this process, right? It could be at the front end where the user doesn't have to go to a branch. Remember, I told you that example of where clients don't really want to walk up to a branch anymore these days, right? And even with the remote working ability, maybe they have a branch that is in a different city, they are in a different city, but they need to process it quickly. All of these factors. What if you provided a virtual assistant that was backed up with an NLP and an OCR engine, where it could be many channels? It could be a browser, it could be a mobile app, they could send it over an email. What if it was also WhatsApp, right? If it is allowed, right? You could send, the customer could upload the documents, could type in their requirements, and then the system would quickly do a validation check. One of the big problems with trade finance, especially for new customers come in, is they make a lot of mistakes. It's complex, right? Applying for maybe an LC or a direct import. Those are new for somebody, they might make mistakes. So what happens is that there is many times that the system has to be sent back, the application has to be sent back, and then the person has to provide more relevant information and so on. What if all of that was handled at the front end itself by an intelligent bot that was backed by an NLP engine? So you upload the documents, OCR, ICR is performed, information is extracted, the document is identified as, let's say, an LC, and then NLP is used to identify the key fields, and then you do a quick check and then say, look, everything looks good. We'll do a quick sanity check and come back to you. So instead of taking maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 days, now it will be done in a matter of minutes or hours, where they could have a quick answer by the end of the day. How about that, right? So here we have I just wanted to list out some of the technologies that we bring in, but that's okay. So we use from an NLP engine, again, it's Watson Discovery. So it's kind of like, it does a whole bunch of things, right? It's not just a virtual assistant extension, but it is also an NLP engine that can do information extraction as well. We provide an ability for you to build without writing a single line of code, machine learning models, import open source Python or R Studio libraries to perform actions as well. And of course, we have our OCR and ICR engine as well. Also wanted to talk to you about how email automation is something that Watson also does. This is again, another very popular one apart from a virtual assistant. This is where, it could be, in this case, you can see that it's an insurance company, and people are sending emails for various reasons. The emails are all listed here. They can be sorted based on priority, based upon what information. Maybe somebody says, it could be based on the emotion, based on maybe an application you want it to be prioritized higher. Accordingly, it could be, it's not just first come, first serve, but it is sorted based upon the importance. And some of them, information can be identified, the fields can be identified, and then a response template can be also be identified, or even sent back. If it is something that is pretty routine, then you could find that response and send it back, or it could keep it ready for the agent to just look at it, glance through the information and say, okay, here is the response, let me customize it a little bit more, and then hit send, right? So that kind of makes the job of the agent that much easier. So various aspects of NLP that I talked about, like sentiment, emotion, etc., are can be brought into the play here. And here is just a flow of that. I'm not going to spend too much time here. But one thing is that you could plug it into a downstream application, ticket creation, maybe even an RPA system, an automated response, or routing it to the right person. All of these can be done through the same system. Another interesting one that I worked on very recently is video search. This is one of you said this is one of your issues, so I'm glad you did that, and we'd love to talk to you more about that. There are a lot of, these days, not only in educational institutions, it could also be meetings like this, conferences, events like this. People don't have the time to go through a 60-minute session from Kiran, but maybe there's some pertinent information somewhere in there that rather than going through 60 minutes of it, if they say, hey, just show me the segment of the video that talks about email automation, and I want to see that. So if you can see here, this is one of the things that we created as a demo. I don't know if you can see the screenshot, but we asked a question, is it recommended to invest in Bitcoins? And specific segments, multiple of them, have been responded back. So if you click that, it would play from that particular segment. So it could be a 20-minute, 30-minute, 1-hour video, but it would go to that specific segment and start playing from there, right? And we did this a while back with TED videos as well. That application is no longer active, but there's a YouTube URL that you could take a look. But that also use things like concepts, sentiment, etc., to find specific videos that best matched the question. So one of the interesting questions in that TED video thing was somebody saying, what is the relationship between happiness and money? And it came out with multiple videos that exactly talk about that segment part, exactly talk about those two aspects. And by the way, now, we can also support local languages like Hindi, if that is something that is important, right? Maybe you want to be even able to speak out in the local language rather than only type in a search, right? What if you could speak out and then the video starts playing from that point, saying, I want to know about Bitcoins, right? And then it goes to that particular section and then starts playing that video from that segment. So that's the video search for it. Here is an architectural overview. So the way we did it was we first took all the videos, did the pre-processing. We used machine learning to split the audio and video, looked at any image any text in the video, use the OCR engine to use that as metadata, use the audio to convert it into searchable text, and then made it available in Watson Discovery, so that when in real time, when a user asks for a particular segment, saying, money and happiness, show me the videos where it talks about the relationship between the two, it would go find the specific video, and it would find that specific segment with the timestamp, right? So then it will be able to play from that particular segment of the video. Okay, the contact center insights is a post call evaluation, because every contact center goes through this. This could be contact center, this could be an employee feedback, it could be anything, right? But basically you are trying to understand, okay, what happened, how do I make them better, which agent is doing better, which type of questions. Maybe then you can route those kind of things. Maybe a certain agent is better handling customers who are angry or irate. Maybe then you can route them, or you could enable the other agents to see how this agent responds to those kind of questions. You could follow that same principle, right? That will help with all kinds of scenarios. So it's basically analytics after the call, and this can be done against email, text, voice calls, etc. Right? So it will give you a nice dashboard view, word cloud. You can navigate through it without even knowing what you're looking for and find information. So all of this, as I mentioned earlier, it's powered by all of the things that I talked about after the bot example. They're all powered by Watson Discovery. And of course, there was a little bit of Watson Speech as well. But end of the day, Watson Discovery was the mainstay in most of those solutions. So it can connect to various data sources, ingest the data, make it add semantic information like sentiment, entities, keywords, concepts, etc., to that particular text. So it's not just text, surface level text search, but it is under the surface, understanding things like, show me the emails where customers were unhappy about product X. Now it will give you specific emails that are talking about maybe product X with negative sentiment, right? So that kind of search is allowed through this system. Okay. Another thing is that you can contextualize this to your domain, right? Because Kiran works for IBM. Kiran is a person out of the box. Watson Discovery can understand Kiran as a person, IBM as an enterprise, organization, or a company. But what if you wanted to understand it as Kiran is an employee and IBM is an employer? Then that context is what you can train using something called as Watson Knowledge Studio. And this is, as you can see here, it's a browser-based tool. You just train it without any coding. Any operations person can actually do that. And then once you train it, it's with a single click, that model will be deployed into Discovery. So now, when you ask that, when you scan that same text, Kiran working for IBM, it will identify Kiran as an employee and IBM as an employer. Here is an example of an that I recently worked on for a bank. So it was this is a trade finance request letter. And so they have put in, I've changed the numbers, of course, but they've put in some account numbers, amounts, and this is all free flowing text, but still the system was able to find the appropriate fields from within that. And this text could be, there's no fixed template, right? It's not templatized at all. So it is contextual, it is machine learning, and it understands based upon, even if it is used in a different way, the sentence is framed differently, it will still be able to find to a large extent. And Watson is continuously improving, right? So we are adding great features like summarization, which is already out in beta, that allows you to take a large text and it gives you a quick summary of what the text is about. Topic clustering, sentence classification, not just the whole document, but also sentence classification. And reading comprehension. This is very interesting because most search engines, if you say who won the most number of medals in Olympics, and then point to that data set, maybe Wikipedia, for example, it will go and find text that talks about number of medals, most number of medals, and then find you a whole paragraph or even a page or a full document sometimes. But what if you just want to say maybe a name, right? Michael Phelps. I don't know if that's the person, but still Michael Phelps, right? That's, you just want a quick answer, right? That's the ability that Watson now has. This is also in beta, and very soon it's going to come out. And all of this was, powered by our research, IBM research that has, and they did this last year, called as, I think a couple of years, called as Project Debater. And all of those, where the debater system debated with human beings on live topics, right? Impromptu live topics. And it would, somebody takes a stance positive, it would take a stance negative with the proper, backup of why it is saying what it is saying, right? So it's very interesting one. If you want to see the video, it's out there. Just search for Project Debater and you'll see more of that. But the point I'm trying to make is we are continuously, improving, innovating, and no wonder, Gartner and Forrester rate Watson Discovery as a leader in the NLP space. We have a whole bunch of customers worldwide. We have thousands of customers actually, and small, big, everybody, right? In every domain pretty much. So the core idea is Watson helps you find information, effectively and easily. So it can be used for, improving employee satisfaction and efficiency, high value, so that they can focus then on high value activities rather than the low value things like searching information. And obviously that results in customer satisfaction, and also employee retention improves, right? So I'll end there. I know I ran over a little bit by 5-10 minutes. Sorry about that. But we are happy to take any questions. Yeah, and as we said earlier, if something goes unanswered, we'll definitely respond back over here.
Thank you, Kiran and Pradeep, for sharing a wealth of information on how Watson Discovery and Watson Assistant are being used to support knowledge workers, consumers, and of course, help desk agents. I now open the floor to questions, and I request everyone to use the Q&A text box to send in their questions, and I will take them one by one till time permits. So the first question is, okay, we have a lot of Hindi language documents that need to be processed or searched, but does your solution Watson Discovery support Hindi?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and India, that is very important, right? So yeah, so we do support Hindi. So if you have a Hindi text document that can be uploaded into Watson Discovery and then used to search or mine through that information, yes, we do support it.
Okay. The next question is, we have data that is in different systems sources. Can your solution Watson Discovery connect and provide the response from these different sources?
Yeah, so that is very true. Not everything can be uploaded into the system, right? So finding it information from various systems. So Watson Discovery out of the box comes with a number of connectors for various systems, typically the most popular ones. But even if something that is not there, we provide an SDK so that it is very easy to write a small set of code to be able to create a connector to that particular data source, whatever is not there out of the box in the Watson Discovery connectors.
Thank you, Kiran. The next question is, do we need to train Watson Discovery to provide the best possible answer, or does it have the capability to learn on its own? Very interesting.
Yeah. So good question. So Watson Discovery out of the box comes with some amount of training, right? So we see that in general, about 40 to 60% of customers, 40 to 60% of the times, customers find that they don't need to do any training, right? Out of the box. Watson Discovery has the ability where you can train it before publishing it for your users. But most of them just publish it as it is, and then the system continuously learns. So as users answer, and then you might train it in different ways. You could provide a UI with a thumbs up, thumbs down. You could even just see where they are clicking. For this particular question, this is the kind of text as they seem to find as an answer, which is more relevant. And so it can continuously look at that and learn from that. So we kind of give you that. My answer is that we give you the flexibility. So because certain customers might say, oh, I want it to be very controlled. I don't want it to learn from the users because that might be misleading. So we give you that control to do either or both, right? So you could train it and then say from here on, learn and get better. I'm giving you some training, learn from here, from the users' interactions. Or you could say, I won't even train anything. Just based on what the users are using it, you will get better as with use, right? Or you could completely train it and then restrict any kind of improvement with the use. So all three options are available.
Thank you. And we'll just take one last question. Does this integrate with third-party AI agents?
Yes, that's one of the things that I talked about, right? So it's called as, we call it as a virtual assistant extension. So the typical scenario is that we use Watson Assistant. If it cannot find, if the answer has not been trained in the system, it will go and find it in Watson Discovery. You could do that without Watson Assistant. If some other third-party virtual assistant is there, that could, you could write an application that will, anyway, you would have an application that calls that bot, let me call it that. And if it doesn't find an answer in that bot, then the application could redirect that question to Watson Discovery. Yes, it can be integrated with. It is all API based, so we provide REST APIs, so you could use that to easily integrate with your existing systems.
Thank you, Kiran. And that's all the time we have for today. I once again thank Pradeep and Kiran. And to know more, you can get in touch with the IBM team. The contact details are there on your screen. And thank you, audience, for your interest and time. Please do fill in the survey form at the end of the webinar. It will appear on your browser. And we look forward to welcoming you all in our next webinar soon. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.